I guess we'll start with the experience, Anita, from last week.
So what happened? You haven't really told me yet, so I'm eager
Okay,
to hear.
I try to meditate every night, and so just last week, I sat down on my mat, closed my eyes, and I decided for this meditation I was just going to focus on the void, nothing at all, completely clear my consciousness, and even stop all thought. Because that also is a wonderful meditation. So I let myself clear out all the day, everything that I did over the course of the day, and just go to complete blackness. And so I was in complete darkness. Everything was calm by myself. It was great. It was getting me to that point where I'd be able to get a good night's rest. And then out of nowhere, you appeared maybe 3 feet in front of me. You were also sitting cross-legged, looking right at me. And now I didn't open my eyes to see you. I saw you, like an imaginary image, but you were very clear, extremely clear. And so it broke my meditation a bit, and so I kind of, without opening my eyes, I was just looking at you, and you were looking at me smiling, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And she said, "Hi, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm good. I'm meditating right now, and I'm just gonna do this for a few minutes. Are you really here?" And you said yes, and I said, "Okay. Can you prove it? Do you want to send me a message? Like, how about I stop my meditation right now and you send me a message through Facebook?" And you said you couldn't do that because you were asleep. And so you were sleeping, and we have a time difference. What time is it for you right now?
Okay, right now it's 11 p.m. 48 minutes.
Okay, so there's an almost 6-hour difference between us, and I was doing this around 10 p.m. So for you, it would have been
4.
So yeah, 4 a.m. for you.
At 4 I am definitely 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I am definitely every single day asleep.
Yeah.
No exceptions.
Yeah. So you
and that's the deepest sleep is at that time.
Okay.
100%.
All right. Well,
I'm
you
never up at 4 ever.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's what you told me when I was doing my meditation. I asked you. I asked you if you. I said, so can you send me a message? And you said no. I'm asleep right now. And I said, oh, okay then.
Oh my God. This is so crazy.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it keeps going. It keeps going. So I said, okay. That makes sense. Then how about, will you please send me a message tomorrow? And so you said you agreed, and then you vanished. And so I finished my meditation, and I went to bed. I slept, woke up in the morning. I had not gotten a message from you yet. And then I went through the whole day at work. And as soon as I was off work, the moment I became free for the night is when you sent me a message asking me if I was going to do a video for Dawn, using Dawn and Malgorzata for Serpo. And so I replied, yes, I'm working on that video now, but now that I've answered your question, I'd like to move on to why you're really texting me. Or I said something along those lines. Do you remember that? I was.
Maybe look it up.
Yes,
said what first?
let me pull up the actual conversation
Because
here.
I know that I told you that I saw, because I had seen you. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I told you that as well.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
I
Let
was
me
thinking of you.
find our actual words. Okay, here we go. So this was
Who said
at
what first? I need to know. Who said it
you
first?
contacted me first. So that was what I was looking for. I was not going to message you, and I think it was very important. I have a timestamp here. Previously, we spoke on January 10th regarding Serpo, and you and I have not messaged each other outside of that. So I looked at that, and so this happened on February 9th. So, very random, almost an entire month later. So I wanted to make sure that it was known that you and I we don't just message randomly or often all that much outside of a project. So we'd spoken about Serpo, and then I got busy back at work and all that stuff. So for you to, first of all, pop into my meditation a month later at random like that was a very unusual thing for me because I wasn't thinking about anything at all. I was very specifically
You were not
shutting
thinking
down.
about me.
No,
Sure.
I wasn't thinking about
Yeah.
you. Honestly, I was trying to focus on complete blackness and breath.
Yeah.
So all I was doing
Yeah.
was breathing, and I was seeing zero until you popped out. And the way you appeared was extremely vivid. That's what I remember the most. You were very vivid, and you have certain mannerisms that you were doing that I'd seen you do in our remote viewing talk a month ago. Like you did a hair flick thing that I've seen you do. I'm like, wow, that's what she does. Are you really here? So that happened. So going to our conversation. So so during my meditation, I asked you to message me. So I wasn't going to message you because that would have ruined the experiment. So the next day, I got out of work at, I was completely done with work at 5. You messaged me at 5:13. So your timing was impeccable. Even though we were separated by 6 hours, you kind of knew when I was off work. So you sent me, "Hi Fabian, are you working on a 4th video for the Zetas star with Dawn and Malgorzata?" And I responded, "Yes, it's coming along very slowly. I had technical difficulties with Malgorzata's recording, but Dawn's is almost ready. LOL, now that I've answered your question, I'm very excited you messaged me. You've made my day."
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that is how our conversation started. And
Confused. You put little hearts there, and I was like, is he nuts? Is he crazy? I was like, I was wondering about that.
Oh, I know. I know.
Are you just bubbling with love all the time? Like, what is that?
Okay.
I just asked you about a video.
I am bubbling with love all the time.
I didn't know this backstory.
But the fact that you did that blew my mind because you did all this was based on a conversation you apparently had in your sleep with me.
It had no awareness as I
Yeah.
wrote to you. I didn't know.
Yeah. So that is why I was so excited. Because you took an experiment, something completely at random, and you blew my mind with it. And before I caught you up with what I was talking about, my next message to you was, "If I tell you why I'm so excited, you might think I'm crazy." And apparently you did think I was crazy because of all the hearts I was sending. But yes, I bubble with love in general because you guys excite me with all of the things you can do. And now, Don and I were talking earlier today that I've been doing astral projection since the 90s. But I'd never encountered another person that I could interact with. So out of all the decades that I'd been doing that, I never had a successful communication with a human being until last week with you. And so that is why, yeah. So
that was one of my questions.
Yeah, yeah. So that is why, Anita, I was so excited. And I kept saying, "Anita, can we have a Zoom call? Because I want to tell you what happened. I just want to tell you. I want to tell you everything." And I was so excited. Yeah.
Could you continue reading on our chat just to see who said this first? So
I caught you up with, boy, it's a lot of typing at this point, and I don't want to take up too much time. Let me skim real quick to see what's relevant.
Just wondering who said something first about this thing.
All right, yeah. I was the one to tell you first. Okay, so here's how the conversation goes. I read the first line, you contacting me, asking about the next Serpo video. Then I responded to you, ending with, "LOL, now that I've answered your question, I'm very excited you messaged me. You made my day." And I gave you a heart. You
I was
responded.
wondering why.
You think I'm crazy. It's okay. We're in the world of
No.
crazy things.
But it was so much hearts. I was just wondering. I just asked you about the video. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what I did.
Well, that's because you're so innocent. So, so next, you said, "Ah, thanks. I look forward to our next adventure." And I realized, okay, you know what? You were asleep, so I wasn't talking to you consciously. So I was wondering, maybe you didn't know why you messaged me. You randomly asked me about a video project, but I was specific the night before when I said, just say something, anything random, just start a conversation. That was my instruction to you while you were sleeping. Just, it doesn't matter what you say. All you have to do is send me a message, and it can be something random. But the fact that it has to be that day, because it, like, I didn't care what you said.
13
Who
minutes
knows?
after
Yeah.
you finished work.
Yeah. So that is why it got me that excited. So at this point, you still didn't know what I was so excited about. You said, "Oh, thanks. I look forward to our next adventure." I said, "If I tell you why I'm so excited, you might think I'm crazy, but I may as well anyway." And then I went down and texted this long thing of everything I just told you and Don about the night before. And then you responded. Let me see if I'm leaving anything out. Okay, so the last sentence in what I responded with is, "I think you paid me an astral visit last night." And then you responded, "Yes, I was connected to you strongly very recently. I agree, I sensed it too. I don't think about you every day, but today or yesterday, yes, like a connection contact, so you're right." And I responded, "I knew it!" And then more hearts and amazing. And then I just started losing my shit. So that was fun for me. And that's why I
Wow.
wanted to have this conversation, because that was a first. Out of decades of weirdness, that was a first. So
Wow.
thank you for that. And so I'm glad that there was still some stuff you didn't know about it, that you didn't know you were asleep when this hit me. But yeah, that was my end of this whole experience.
So, Mike's my version.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I
please.
think I think it was the day before, the evening before, because at 4 a.m. I would have been asleep and
Mm-hmm.
visiting you astrally. I think it was the day before, I think. I remember it still very clearly. I don't go around thinking about you all the time, and um, out of nowhere, I'm minding my own business, doing things around my home. Out of nowhere, I see you during the day, not when I'm asleep, not at 4 a.m. I think it was the evening before that night.
You
I
you
see you
saw him
so,
in your mind, or what were you
yeah,
seeing?
but almost like before me, almost physical, even though not. Very,
Now, may
not
I
just,
ask,
not an image in my mind, the
it
full person, very, very
did it
clear.
was it at an angle 45 degrees from your forehead, or I have a reason for asking this,
No,
but
no, it was like someone next to me, the
okay,
same angle as me.
okay,
Um, Very vivid. I have psychic visions of people very often, of
okay.
various people or of ghosts as well. But this was different. This was unusually clear and vivid and almost physical, of Fabian. And
Mm.
I knew it was him. I saw him. And that to me was very unusual. So
And
that would have happened some hours
this was the
before,
day before, right?
the evening before I would go to sleep and visit him.
So no,
So
you this was like around your dinner time, or I'm trying to,
probably late evening,
like
I think
11 p.m. maybe.
10, 11, something,
So
maybe.
10, 11. So that'd be
Maybe
11, 10,
something
9,
like
8,
that.
7, 6, 5 p.m. your time, Fabian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to see if there's something with time here that plays into this. But I'm sorry.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure exactly what time, so I'm not sure if we can check that.
Okay.
But it was an unusually clear for me, and I was taken aback and wondering, okay, why Fabian? Why now?
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't interact with this. I didn't speak with this or anything. But it was an experience. That's why when you told me, I said, I know there was a connection.
Yeah.
Something happened
That's
between us. So I was not surprised at all that there was some connection psychically. However, I had no memory in the morning of going to see you or having that conversation or promising to write to you on Facebook. So that was all in my subconscious.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what I had thought. That because if you were asleep, then I'm like, well, her trying to remember a dream is not going to work out. So it has to be some kind of a subconscious suggestion. So I would like to next ask you, you mentioned that this was not unusual for you earlier when you talked about how you'd seen other remote viewers in the same way. But before we went to that, I wanted to make a statement or a comment that, after Serpo, when you mentioned how you had kind of spoken with the ET, I wondered, well, what must that be like to talk with an alien, or aliens aside, what must it be like to have a conversation with somebody while remote viewing? I didn't know what that would be like because I'd never experienced it myself. I'm also not a remote viewer, so anybody watching this video
Not
right
yet.
now, true, but anybody watching this video right now that is a remote viewer and only wants to talk about remote viewing, I can set their mind at ease and say, don't worry, we're not talking about remote viewing right now. This is not any protocol or anything like that. It's just an exploration of how the mind works. And so to get back to what I was saying, I was wondering, what is it like to have this telepathic conversation? Because I have not done it before. And then it also made me think of when other remote viewers would say, well, I was remote viewing aliens and they sensed that I was there. So I wondered, what is it that an extraterrestrial would be sensing to let them know that you're there? And so these are things that were always outside of my experience until last week when I got to experience both. So basically, I now know that yes, I think I do know what it would be like to sense that you're being remote viewed or that you're having a contact, because it was very obvious and, like you were saying, very vivid. It could have been my imagination, and yet it was more vivid than my imagination usually is. So I guess I was looking at the situation going, wow, if you were remote viewing me right now, then I see you, so I've got to acknowledge that I see you. I'm sensing that you're there. It's more than sensing, it's just seeing you. You're right in front of me, that within 4 feet I could reach out and touch you, and it was shocking, really. I'm glad I was in the right mental frame. Maybe I had to be completely relaxed to be able to pick up that somebody else was there. But it definitely felt like you were there. So the next day when I woke up with the expectation that I was about to hear from you.
So Fabian, I'd like to ask you a question at this point. When you were meditating, did you drift into like the near sleep state, or were you completely, totally conscious?
Completely conscious.
Okay.
Yes, that's. I struggled when I was younger. Sometimes it wasn't really a struggle, but when I was younger and I would lay out on the couch, there were times that I would fall asleep. So as an adult, if that's not what I want to do, then I sit up straight with my legs crossed on a mat, and I can't fall asleep in that position. The reason I usually end my meditations or astral projections these days is because my back's beginning to hurt, because I've been out long enough that my back hurts and it starts to draw attention to my body and I come back. So I sit up straight, and so I never get to a point where I could fall asleep. So yeah, you're welcome. So to go back to that other thing, so yes, I saw Anita, and then I also had my first, what felt like telepathic conversation. So I'd been hearing about people who can have these telepathic conversations, and Anita, you had this telepathic conversation on Serpo, and so I'm thinking, well, what would that be like if you're not really hearing a voice? Like, how do you interpret that in a way for a video? Because my goal was to make a video about this. And now I've had the experience of what it's like to just sit across from somebody. I saw you without opening my eyes, and I spoke with you without having to use my mouth. All I had to do, and it wasn't difficult at all. I always thought, wouldn't you have to filter out all these random thoughts you have? You filter them all out, and then your mouth says only what you want your mouth to say, while hundreds of other thoughts are going on in your mind. And I found that, Anita, when I was doing my meditation and I talked to you, it wasn't difficult at all. There was no filtering. My mind was already empty, so all I had to do was pretty much just say, oh, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Are you really here? And I was very easily able to understand what you were saying. And for you to tell me that you were asleep was, that rung weirdly true to me. So I let you off the hook with that, but I said, so how you prove it to me that you're here right now. Just stop whatever you're doing and send me a message over Facebook. And you said, I can't do that. I'm asleep right now. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
wow, that hurt my brain a little. That's really real. And so, yes, I was very excited when you messaged me the next day at a perfect time like that.
But why did my soul or astral self or subconscious or higher self or whatever it is that does that, why did it choose to come and see you?
Maybe to prove a point.
Yes.
Or give us a reason to have this conversation in lieu of other conversations that are going on where people have doubts about various things.
I just know that it's connected with, because my version preceded yours. I saw you the evening, which must have been before I went to sleep and visited you. So it started over here, I presume, when I saw you. But I didn't know that I was going to go see you when I go to sleep. And when I woke up, I didn't know that I had done that. I had no memory of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it started here with my vision, not just a vision, but it was almost physical. It was so clear. I saw you.
Yeah, that's how it was for me.
Out of nowhere, I was minding my own business, not thinking about you or anything related with our RV project or anything.
Yeah.
And I was curious, why Fabian? Why so clear? Why almost physical? Why now?
Right.
I didn't know, and I didn't investigate it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You were that vivid for me as well. And Dawn, what's funny with you have messaged me a few times wondering when I'm going to put out the next video, because things got really crazy for me at work, so I haven't had time to think about remote viewing or any of this stuff for a few weeks. So after the last Serpo video...
I only just sent you a message a couple of days ago. I wasn't continually sending messages.
You're right. Okay, let me not make you sound crazy. You're right.
And I'd like to get back to Anita for a second. The message that was conveyed was this thing that you sent Fabian a real text message, right? That asked whether he was going to continue making a movie that include myself and Malgorzata, right?
Yeah.
Did that idea surface in your mind before you saw the image of Fabian?
After.
After.
The day after. Because the day after, for me, was the day after. So for me, my time, in the evening, I see Fabian. Then I go to sleep, and obviously I visit him, and I don't know when I'm asleep. And then in the next day, in my time, so I write to him wondering about that video when he's going to finish it. Because I know somewhere was mentioned he's working on the 4th part.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question, which you might be about to ask. If now, for the skeptics, why did you feel the need to message me that when you did? Or is it because that's when you remembered to?
Okay,
Or?
I can tell you the reason why is I saw that you posted your previous RV project in the remote viewing Facebook group, the one with the Mayan, that video.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, because I haven't seen you posting our Serpo session in the Facebook group, I wanted to ask you, are you going to post those videos in the group? But then I remembered I read somewhere you're working on the fourth part, so I assumed you first want to finish your fourth part and then you might post them or not. So instead of asking you if you're going to be posting those Serpo videos, I just wanted to know if you're about to finish the fourth one.
Nice. Okay,
So that became a more pressing question.
I see. I like how that went because I didn't post anything that day. Um, I I had not posted anything since the Serpo things weeks ago. So it seemed completely random to me that you would send me a message at that time outside of suggestion. So you just kind of needed a topic, but I was pleased because you could have asked me about that any time over the past month. And so the timing is what got my attention. I said, hey, send me something random. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is start a conversation on this particular day, and you did it. And that was enough for me. I guess at this point, it needs to be a repeatable thing for it to be a proper experiment.
Are we doing it again?
Oh, I think we should. I purposely have
Yay!
not done much outside since I wanted to have this conversation with you first and capture this first experience. And then, so what I've done, I sent you this message on Facebook, but to say, because many people will see this as a potential intrusion kind of situation, I wanted to say, Anita, feel welcome to astrally pop in on me whenever, and we will communicate, and it will be awesome. It will be nice and fair, and we'll be respectful of each other. I won't be in the shower when you pop in, and you won't be in the shower if I happen to pop in. We'll try to respect each other's human barriers about certain things like that. And when it's an appropriate time, we will visit each other. So I'm completely open for astral visits at appropriate times.
Now,
I had
Fabian, I
no
was just
idea
looking.
that I did that.
Fabian, I was just looking. I sent you the message asking about the video on Friday.
Hmm.
When did you have your meditation?
That would have been, this conversation with Anita was February 9th, so it would have been the night of February 8th.
And what day is that? Is that
Hold on a second. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right message. Yes. So February 8th at night is when she would have visited me.
Okay. All right. So no correlation there. I was just wondering whether I sent a message, then you saw Anita, you saw Fabian, and then all of a sudden you were asking essentially the same question that I had.
Oh, your video. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're kind of in there as well because
Yeah,
I was asking about
but
your.
I sent my message the day of the Zoom meeting, which was Friday.
Maybe you'll be seeing me soon, Don, when you least expect it.
Cue the spooky music.
Yeah.
You know what?
Involved here now.
Yeah. The missing element here is Malgorzata. If she were on this call right now, then she could say, oh, well, I saw all of you, and I set all of this up. I said, all right, everybody show up at Fabian's house at 8 p.m. on the dot. Let's give him nightmares, and yeah. But so we'll have to get her in on one of these soon. But yeah.
I could mention, ever since I started remote viewing, I would love to mention the names, but it might be inappropriate.
Okay.
There is one older veteran remote viewer. I won't mention a name. Ever since I started remote viewing targets tasked by this person, and was already some year ago, I would see him as if he were standing right next to me, almost a physical apparition. And I'm doing my session, drawing, writing, focused on my RV, on a blind practice target. And there he is standing next to me. Obviously, I'm aware it's something astral. And I just look at him and he looks at me and is so vivid. And this person visits me astrally like this a lot and looks at me. And I will have visions of him in his home. And I have confirmed afterwards that some of the things I've seen him doing in his home are absolutely accurate. I won't mention one of his hobbies at home because it might link some people to knowing who this is, and let's just keep this private. But something I've seen him doing a lot in his home, which is a fairly uncommon hobby, common but also not, very specific. And later since I'm in the RV community and people post about their private life and post pictures, what they're doing, hobbies at home and such, there it was. So that was one way I think it's a real astral projection that this person does for some reason and visits me a lot. And I feel that we have conversations with each other, personal conversations, and a kind of a relation. It's for some reason, it's as if I get the sense that we have like astral body or a separate person in us which roams, as we know, and you do astral projection. There's this concept that we have an astral body which is us, but a separate us, and it has a will of its own, and it goes places, it thinks, it has emotions and experiences. It's as if our astral selves go places, go visit, go talk to people, because this remote viewer visits me a lot. And I have mentioned this in the RV community, and it wasn't taken seriously. But that one aside, there's another very well-known remote viewer. Again, I would love to say the name, but the person might not appreciate being involved in this. Whenever he reads my posts on Facebook and writes to me, I see him very vividly, and it gets more vivid each time, where a couple days ago, I could not only see his entire body and his room, it was as if I was his soul. I was in his hands. I was in his body. I was him. I was him in his body, exactly like he is himself. 100%. And I confirmed this with a timestamp. I go and check. Yes, at this time when I saw him, he was indeed writing to me at that exact time. Especially, and this happens with many people in the RV community, not everyone, but a lot of them. I will see them, I hear their thoughts, I feel their emotions. It's because when they read something I wrote, they're thinking about me. And in remote viewing terms, it's a signal thing. They're focusing on me with themselves and their emotions at the same. So they have their thoughts and emotions while they're reading about something I wrote, and they're focused on me. So they're sending to me this information. They're creating a connection. This is something that's become more and more frequent for me and more strong, to where a couple days ago with this one person, the experience was as if I was him. I was him in his body. It wasn't me looking at it. It was 100% me.
I know very much what you're talking about. Don, actually, earlier, Don and I were having a very similar conversation about this, and he asked me about how I started astrally projecting as a small child, and I told him that I would become birds outside. I would be on a drive with my parents to New York, and I would get really bored in the back seat, so I would look out the window, I would find a bird, and then I would shift my perception to the perception of the bird, and I would be that bird for as long as I felt I needed to before I got bored again, and then I'd shift. So what you're describing right now reminds me a lot of how I used to body hop, where I would look
Oh,
at somebody and I would take that perception, and I've done that recently. I stopped doing it with people. I stopped doing it with people for reasons that can be in a whole nother conversation because people have dirt and problems. Birds are much freer though. So I had done it with a bird and recently also done this.
yeah. So when I saw you coming back to our incident, when I saw you that evening, I wasn't fully it was surprising because usually I just have the pictures from afar, but this one, seeing you, was more of a almost physical apparition of you, and I was wondering, why Fabian? Why
Oh,
now?
Mm-hmm.
What does this mean?
Hmm.
It was unusual. However, I have something similar often with that one remote viewer who probably isn't aware of it, that he visits me astrally.
So you haven't
I would
talked to
claim
him
that he,
about this?
I have, but he hasn't mentioned it.
Oh,
Um,
oh he might be
but
embarrassed, like a peeping tom or something.
probably,
Yeah.
but I did confirm with that hobby, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he does visit me.
Gotcha.
Why he, why his I get the sense from him as if we have, like I said, this second person to ourselves, the second you, Fabian, have another Fabian inside you, which does things on its own astrally. That's the sense I have of the astral body. Um, for some reason, his astral self or higher self, or however you call this, chooses to visit me often and to look at me. And mostly when I'm doing one of the targets that he has prepared, he's watching me do his target.
now
But for some reason, he also
I'd
talks
like
to
to.
me about private things, as if he seeks out to have a have a relation with me, to know me, to have me in his life. It's as if our higher selves are chatting.
Mm. Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah. All right, Don, you had a
Yeah,
question?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to mention that the last time I took my remote viewing course, our teacher said that um, he has noticed that there is some sort of a telepathic relationship between the teacher and the student. And I I don't know that anything more was said about that, except when I was doing a practice target session one time, all of a sudden the voice was coming through that was telling me to look at certain things and um, you know, what do you see to your left? What do you see down below? It looks like a table. Oh, okay. What? Go down there. Feel the edges. And so I was doing that, and then I said it feels like a lid. It feels like a lid. And said, oh, lift it up. What do you see in there? And I never experienced that before, but um, that was one of the very few times that I did a bilocation experience where all of a sudden, for like a second, you actually see where you are in like regular vision. Doesn't last long. Sir Isaac Newton's tomb. And and then it vanished. But the thing was, I recognized I did not need to do any more remote viewing anymore because I recognized the visual. I had seen it in in one of those Tom Hanks movies where he was playing the investigator for what was it? That I saw, and the reason that I know that I was there was they did not present a picture of the cathedral that's in, but I started off above the cathedral looking down at the tower, and then um, I'm like, this is like a remote viewing session. So I'm writing down, like a tower and whatever. And then, um, uh, the voice is saying, like, do you see anything on the tower? No one has ever, I've never experienced a remote viewing session where someone was guiding me, telling me to, do you see anything there? So, like, I started looking there. It was like assisting me. So yes, I saw this crucifix there, but it wasn't just a plain old cross. It had these like knobs, sort of like on the ends, like a Gothic sort of a thing, and it was like sort of beveled and bubbly kind of a thing. And I verified that image on Google, so I know I was there. I didn't know anything about that. So anyway, I guess the point of me saying all of this is um, my teacher might be right. Like, if you're learning something through like the efforts of another person, that person, Anita, may express themselves, come through a little bit. Maybe their personality is somehow connected to the data or the target, or come on, look at how remote viewing works. You're thinking about one thing, and then your mind can jump over to another thing and then jump to another thing. Who knows how this data is all hooked up? It's, there could be a bit of someone's personality, like,
Because you could be something like that, because I rank Fabian as, I've only done one target tasked by Fabian, that was the Serpo. I immediately after that one session rank him as one of the top 3 taskers I ever had. The other 2 are Daz Smith and Russell Pickering. And Daz, as we know, is a long time remote viewer, considered at least as one of the good ones. And Russell Pickering just passed Paul Smith's advanced CRV course, so he's also accredited and talented.
mm-hmm.
So Fabian, I rank with those 2 top remote viewers as a tasker.
Well, thank you.
Because the signal strength was one of the very finest signals I ever got to work with. It was incredibly powerful. And I know you showed us in one of your Serpo videos after the feedback how you're involved. You have this approach where you meditate on a tune corresponding to theta reticuli. Now, something you did with your tasking definitely created a very strong signal in my experience. So what Don is suggesting is perhaps our astral visit experience could be because I did a target tasked by you, perhaps that formed a connection. Because, good point, Don, when Don also did Fabian's target with this signal, when you're looking at these numbers and you're getting a signal, it's because you decided what this target number is, Fabian. You placed your intent on this target number. So we're connecting to your intent, and your intent comes from your mind. So we're somewhere there, we're connected to your mind.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yes.
that could have formed some type of bridge, because these most of these experiences I have of having apparitions of remote viewers is actually, now that I think of it, is mainly with ones whose targets I have done. They're the ones I have the strongest connection to, but not only. Also others who are just remote viewers, I never did their targets. But yeah, it could be that tasker and remote viewer instantly form a bond, a mental connection with each other, which they actually use during remote viewing, but which they perhaps don't know that they're supposed to cut off. They don't cut off.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dawn. That was an interesting thought.
There's one other thing that you just triggered a recollection. Fabian, you didn't attend that meeting that Daz held, but I asked him. I'm trying to remember how I phrased the question, and I'm not going to remember it, but I remember the answer. Um, it was something like, if you send a group of remote viewers out to a target, um, yeah, that's what it was. If a bunch of remote viewers are all sent out to a target, does it make the target easier for um, for each successive individual that goes to the target? Okay, this was a question I asked Daz. Because I had heard from my teacher that he liked to send the strongest remote viewer out to a target first because it clears the path, or he used some words like that. Okay. So Daz said he had noticed something like that. And also, it was like a cosmic overseer was directing each of the remote viewers to separate different aspects of the same target, so they wouldn't be like seeing exactly the same thing. They would be reporting on different aspects of the target. And I thought, I had never heard that before, and I just thought, Anita, since I thought of this, I'd mention it, since there is sort of a connection there.
Yes. What I found interesting is when I assign a target, all the remote viewers, they build on each other's stories a lot of the time. Somebody will go out and they'll kick things off. Somebody else will come in. Everybody sees completely different aspects of the target, which are absolutely amazing. Anita had a conversation, going easily to Serpo. Anita had a conversation with somebody on Serpo where RV guy came in and he just drew the town where all this was taking place, and he drew that steeple in there that Anita also drew. Just so many people picked up on so many of the same things. Mm-hmm. What I loved was that everybody described the same stuff, but you could tell they were all standing in slightly different positions and filling in details for each other. And I've seen that across a number of projects now. Another project that was like that was Europa. When I sent Europa people to the moon Europa to see if there was life under the ice shelf, and is there a liquid ocean under there, like scientists say. And all the results came back the same, telling the same story, but details, all these different aspects that were absolutely amazing, that blew my mind. Even if it doesn't have full feedback, the fact that everybody is describing the same thing and I didn't set that as the intention. You guys are right when you talk about setting an intention when you're setting a target. You do that. It's important. You just do it. And it does create a relationship between the remote viewer and the tasker. But and yeah, maybe that should be cut off. At the moment, I'm enjoying that I didn't disconnect that line, because there's more to be learned. There's more to be gathered. So if here I am connecting with somebody, Anita, you're in Sweden, is that right?
I'm in Austria.
Austria, okay. Mm-hmm. I did not know that. I thought Sweden for some reason.
I'm from Sweden originally.
Gotcha. So I must have seen that on your Facebook page. So you're originally from Sweden, now you're in Austria, and so 6-hour difference. So that's a 6-hour difference. And so for a mental connection to remain between that distance over that time is very significant. And I think that outside of remote viewing, that in and of itself is worth being studied. So that really caught my attention.
You know, Fabian, just thinking on this one step further, it might be worth an experiment to ask a bunch of viewers to go out to the location at the same time.
Hmm.
I mean, the same physical time. Um, there was something on a far site which indicated that remote viewers were encountering each other.
Yeah.
And uh, I'm just curious if that could actually happen, you know?
You know, I would kind of guess it could.
And what would it
Um,
be like? What would the
okay.
experience be like? You know, would it come out in the data, or would you start hearing a telepathic conversation, or what would happen?
That reminds me of Anita's session where, Anita, I don't know how much more thought you put into your conversation with the ET you were talking with, but as I looked over the whole thing and they talked about how they were talking to you from the distant past, I gathered that you were talking to somebody who was not, who was no longer living, that had passed away, possibly even a million years ago, and that what you were talking to was almost like a memory of them where they were. That yeah, I don't even need to say ghost. You were almost talking to an interactive, pre-recorded hologram, to put it in technical terms. What would you respond to that?
Well, to me, the experience was as if I'm talking to a real person instead of to some kind of hologram simulation. It feels that way. It seems that way. It seems like a real sentient person who was speaking to me from Serpo. However, I have no way of knowing. It could as well be a simulation, because if it isn't a simulation, if it was a real conversation with a real person in his time when he lived, then that would also imply that I'm someone talking to him from his future, and that I'm therefore changing his life experience, the course of his actual life, that I'm going in there and disturbing because he would have memory of having spoken with me. I would be intruding into his existence, into his actual recorded life. I don't know which is the case, but to me, by all means, it seemed to be real. It seemed the experience was as if, by all means, as if he speaks to me from his real life and not from a simulation. However, which one is the case, I have no real way of knowing.
So I have a question. Um, you know, Anita, how you can remote view and you can remote view into the past and you can remote view into the present and you can even remote view into the future, right? It doesn't seem there's any sort of a time constraint in with remote viewing.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's investigate this a little bit. If you can do that, if you have a telepathic conversation with someone, it could be in the past, present, or future, is my guess. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean you're having it right now. It could be you're connecting with something that's in a different time. I don't understand this business about when you're remote viewing. It's like you take the whole, past and future and you sort of like turn it and now you can look at any time that, that you want. Now, do you when I watched your segment, I got the impression that you were talking to these beings in the past because it seemed like they were concerned about recording something for posterity. Did you get any feeling like that it was past or present or even in the future?
Well, the alien told me very specifically in words that this happened millions of years ago. He was talking to me about me being in the future for him and him being millions of years ago for me.
Oh, okay.
This
I
happened
missed
a long
that.
time ago, he says. I wish I had the quotes exactly of what he said. I
Okay,
guess I
so
could
this
pull
is
it up. But he was millions of years ago for me, and I am millions of years in his future. So
oh,
that's the timelines we're dealing with. However, for me, I had no sense or feeling of being in the past. I
because
didn't,
that
because
moment was the present for you as well.
I'm remote viewing a target. I don't feel that just because it's millions of years ago, it feels just as vivid as something that was a day ago as a
Yeah,
target. I don't
right.
have this distinction. I could
So,
probably probe for the time when it happened, but it doesn't feel different just because it's a long time ago.
Anybody want to make any closing remarks?
Well, thank you for sharing the experience. You're clearly very excited about this. Things like this happen to me often, not exactly this. I was shocked to find out that I said those things to you and you actually picked up full sentences, and that we made this deal to write, and that I told you I'm sleeping, and I'm just shocked. I know that the astral body roams around and travels because we do that when we're dreaming. I've also had lucid dreams, and it's very clear that we're able to do this. But I had no idea that my astral body would, I guess, choose to go and visit you. So that was shocking for me.
Oh yeah, and I enjoyed how clear the communication was. It was the easiest thing to do. It didn't. It was there was no challenge. It was just a very clear communication. The way you answered me, even though I didn't hear, and I didn't hear your voice. It's like I know what your voice sounds like, but I didn't. It was not an audible experience. I just felt like we were talking, kind of like how we are right now, but I didn't believe in the technology entirely, so that's why I wanted to test it. But the test turned out quite wonderful, as wonderfully. So yeah, I'm very excited that we got a chance to talk about this, and now I mainly wanted to catch this on video so that we have a record of the first time. Well, it'll be a record of the first time I've done this. And I would like to do this again in the future with you, Don, whoever else happens to enter into this experiment where we contact each other in the middle of the night and have some kind of a successful communication. I think this is the first of hopefully many.
You're welcome to visit anytime, Fabian.
I might not know I'm doing it. I apologize if I pop in at a bad time, but apparently it's possible. So I will try to keep everything appropriate and just forgive me
No
if I say the
worries.
wrong thing ever.
I have, like I said, several of the people in the RV remote viewing community, for some reason, maybe because I've done targets tasked by several of them, for some reason there's some type of connection going on. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I do know that when they read my posts, several of them, individuals, or when they write to me, I see them at that exact time. But some of them seem to have a roaming spirit or astral body, because I have the experience of their astral body, or whatever this roaming part of us is, looking at me and visiting me fairly often. And I can read their thoughts. And I know how crazy this sounds, but with you, there's some type of confirmation about this phenomenon that I experience. Because I see them often. Some of them, there's one that seems to be visiting me often lately. I have the experience as if I see him and he talks to my mind, and that he sees me, but it's some type of astral version or something of him, a projection. So I feel more confident to talk about that after you have confirmed that these things really do happen.
Wonderful. And thank you for helping me to confirm it. It has been a great experience. Thank you guys so much for talking with me about this. This has been a lot of fun, and let's do this again soon.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.